Hey guys, Wes Adams here with Autodesk at SIGGRAPH 2012 in Los Angeles. I'm with Kevin Scharff, lead producer at Spark Unlimited. He's working on Lost Planet 3. Kevin, can you tell me a little bit about what you were just showing on stage here today?
Sure, we're here to talk about embodying the narrative in Lost Planet 3, and in particular focusing on how Autodesk tools are being used to craft that experience.
So can you tell me a little bit about how you're using the entertainment creation suites in your day-to-day workflow?
Sure. One of the things that's been really important for us to kind of get that narrative right is to make believable characters. And that's not just stopping at the characters themselves, it's all the way through their performances. So we're really leveraging the full suite with particular emphasis on Maya and Motion Builder in order to create kind of what we call a digital double pipeline. I know that's gotten a lot of notoriety in Hollywood, but we really want to make sure we brought that to a games pipeline. So we start with scanning our characters from full body as well as complete face shapes and a neutral. So we have the full fax complement of facial shapes that we get off of a cast actor who will also go onto the mocap volume, do the full face, body, and audio performances on set that we marry back onto the character scans that have fully targeted bone setups that match the proportions, so that what you get is a very, very crisp performance that goes right into the game. And on top of that, we'll leverage our virtual camera setup so we can shoot lots of coverage, we can bring the cameras in very close, create a more cinema verite style, again, to make it a more personal story, which is one of the central components of Lost Planet 3.
And I also noticed that you're using Scaleform for the user interface, and you're talking about how that can help with the immersion. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. We needed to find a user interface solution to begin with, and Scaleform is really hands down, kind of first-class solution just for the basic elements of feedback on any type of game for, vitals or navigation devices, ammo. But what we want to do is utilize it to help with the narrative. And so Jim Payton, our main character in the story, is brought to EDN 3 as a contractor, earned hazard pay for his family back home. And unlike in previous Lost Planet installments where there were vital suits that were more like body armor, interchangeable power-ups, we want to create an attachment of Jim with his utility rig, which is his version, an earlier version of a vital suit, which is more like a large piece of construction equipment. It's kind of akin to a trucker in his rig, and that kind of relationship. But while Jim is in his rig or outside of his rig, we needed a way to reinforce the kind of home away from home, or why it's his lifeboat. We found Scaleform did a really admirable job. So for instance, all those vitals, all that statistics, you go too far from utility rig, you go out of what we call umbilical range, and you lose your HUD, you lose your umbilical kind of extension of information. Additionally, while you're inside the vital suit, the way in which you relate to the world, whether it's doing a construction job or fighting some of the nasty acrid, you get all types of user feedback information on how to engage, utilize your construction equipment, your drill, your claw, and how you relate to the world. And Scaleform does a really tremendous job of making that very easy. Additionally, we do other things like you're always getting messages from home. Your wife will remind you you're not there to take out the trash, and while you're walking through the world, very hostile environment, messages will pop up, driven through our character pipeline, utilizing Scaleform to kind of make you feel contrast to this high technology interface, kind of in the stark, brutal, desolate world. So we found Scaleform to be invaluable for the project.
It sounds like the utility rig is a really central part of the gameplay design. Can you tell me how else that might impact the player?
Oh, sure. One of the things that we wanted to do from the very beginning to change up the player experience, again, in reinforcing both the narrative but also the gameplay, was build this relationship between you and the rig. So again, you don't hop from one rig to another. When the rig breaks down, you're up to having to fix it, or you have to go without it, and the rest of the environment is much harsher. One of the things that we also found really interesting from a gameplay perspective, and it took a little while to prove out, but we feel it's really, really compelling, and something that we don't find is being done anywhere else, is it's a first-person experience while you're in the rig. While we go kind of the traditional third-person action adventure shooter when you're on foot. Inside the rig, it's a first-person experience, which again brings you much closer to the action, gives you a much more intimate relationship because you embody the rig, and makes the combat much more visceral because you're up close and in on it. So the utility rig experience, both from a combat, from a navigation device, from a narrative standpoint, is a central pillar. And what's really cool is we found players really like balancing both. They'll come up upon a creature, they'll fight it in the rig while the rig is kind of pinned down a creature. They'll hop outside of the rig, find a weak spot, and exploit it. And so it builds this great third-person, first-person relationship between the player while he's on foot and while he's on the rig. And it's really compelling, very different type of gameplay, and we're really excited about it.
Tell me more about how you used Kinaps to create the AI for the acrids, because they look a little terrifying to me.
Oh, and they absolutely are, whether you're in the rig or you're on foot. Doing acrid or any type of creature-based game, you need to solve some very complex problems. In particular, when you're not doing every creature is either carrying a weapon or has pure range-based combat, you need to come up with really complicated pathing solutions, because you always want your AI to be able to relate to the player, whether it's kind of how do they get to the player, when they get to the player, how do they maintain that distance, how do they seem scary up front, and also how do they relate to each other? So if we want a pack of creatures, as we've showcased in parts of the game, they have to not only identify how to work in attacking the player, but they have to work with each other, not against each other always. So our kind of pack hunting style creatures know that when there are multiple versions of them around, they're going to attack the player differently. Some of them will circle to kind of keep the player pinned down, while one or two of them will be lunging in. And you need complex pathfinding solutions to solve those kind of very complicated player experiences, and that's why we turn to Kinaps.
It looks like the gameplay and the combat is going to be really fantastic. Where can people go if they'd like to learn more about it?
Well, you can go to almost any social media outlet and type in Lost Planet. I know Lost Planet has a really great Facebook page, Google Plus page, all the various social media sites. There's tons of information. There's a ton of information that's going to be forthcoming in game shows to come. You can also follow Spark Unlimited on our Facebook page. We're always putting lots of Lost Planet 3 information out there.
Thank you for joining us. Guys, stay tuned. Thanks.